All right, let's talk about one of the most incredible yet somehow overlooked events in all of world history, the Haitian Revolution. This is an absolutely epic story of freedom, of betrayal, and a legacy that honestly is still shaping our world in ways most of us don't even realize. We always think of the big revolutions in America and France when we talk about the birth of liberty. But what if I told you that the most radical, the most complete, and the most uncompromising fight for the freedom of everybody happened somewhere else entirely? Let's dig into that. Our story kicks off in the French colony of Saint-Domingue. Now, in the late 1700s, this place was known as the Pearl of the Antilles. And I mean, no exaggeration here. It was the single most profitable colony on the planet. It was cranking out a mind-boggling 40% of the world's sugar and half of its coffee. But all that money, all that wealth was built on a foundation that was just waiting to shatter. Just look at these numbers for a second. You've got this tiny group of whites, maybe 7% of the population, and an even smaller group of free people of color. Together, they're controlling an enslaved population that makes up a whopping 88% of the island. They were outnumbered almost 10 to 1. That's unstable, to say the least. And this place was a pressure cooker of different groups who all wanted different things. You had the Grand Blanc, these super rich planters who just wanted France off their back so they could make even more money. Then you had the Petit Blancs, the working class whites, who were resentful of pretty much everybody. Then the gens de couleur, free people of color, often wealthy themselves, who wanted the political rights that whites had. And at the very bottom, 500,000 enslaved Africans who lived in the most brutal conditions imaginable. Their goal? Simple. Freedom. Every single group was on a collision course with every other group. So into this incredibly tense situation, a spark comes flying across the Atlantic. It's 1789. The Bastille has just fallen in Paris, and the ideas of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity, they hit the shores of Saint-Domingue like a bolt of lightning. And here is the core of the problem. That one word, liberty, meant completely different things to the free people on the island. For the rich white planters, liberty meant freedom from French taxes. That's it. For the free people of color, it meant, hey, the revolution says all men are equal, so give us our full rights as French citizens. They were fundamentally at odds from day one. And so the colony just explodes, but not in the way you might think. Not at first. What happens is a vicious three-way civil war breaks out between the rich whites, the poor whites, and the free people of color. And while they were all busy fighting each other for power, they made a fatal mistake. They completely ignored the 88% of the population who had the most to gain from real liberty. Because, while the elites were distracted, the enslaved people of Saint-Domingue decided, okay, our time is now. They were going to seize their own destiny. And this is where the story becomes the largest and really the only successful slave uprising in all of human history. The moment it all kicks off is in August of 1791. There was a secret voodoo ceremony at a place called Bois Caiman, and a priest named Duty Bookman made the call to rise up. This wasn't just a riot, this was an organized spiritual call to arms that united thousands of people. The uprising was immediate and it was ferocious. The northern plains, the engine of the whole sugar economy, just went up in flames. Plantations were burned and the French colonial economy ground to a halt. And out of this fire, an incredible leader emerges, Toussaint Louverture, a formerly enslaved man who turned out to be a military and political genius. But this wasn't just a local fight. Oh no, it went global, fast. It became this incredibly complex chess match, and Toussaint Louverture was a grandmaster. He knew that to survive, he had to play the big European empires, France, Spain, and Britain, against each other. So let's just quickly walk through how this all unfolded. The revolt starts in 91. By 1794, France is in a tough spot. Britain and Spain are invading the colony. So, in a radical move, the French government abolishes slavery to get the rebels on their side. And it works, but that alliance doesn't last. By 1802, Napoleon is in charge, and he invades to bring slavery back, which of course leads to the final bloody war for independence in 1804. Yeah, Napoleon's betrayal was cold and calculated. It was all about the money. He needed the cash from those sugar plantations to fund his wars in Europe. So he sent a massive naval fleet, one of the biggest in French history, with one simple, brutal mission: crush the black leaders and put the chains back on. Toussaint Louverture was tricked, he was captured, and he was shipped off to die in a freezing French dungeon. But Napoleon, badly underestimated the revolution. A new general, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, stepped up. They fought a scorched earth campaign, burning cities and farms to leave nothing for the French. And they got a deadly assist from yellow fever, which absolutely decimated the European troops. There was no way they were going back to slavery. So after more than a decade of the most brutal fighting you can imagine, they did the impossible. They won. But victory on the battlefield was one thing. What came next, the price they were forced to pay for that freedom, was a different kind of war altogether. January 1st, 1804, Dessalines declares independence. He renames the country Haiti, which was its original indigenous name. Now, this was absolutely world-changing. Haiti became the very first independent Black republic and the first nation in human history to permanently ban slavery in its constitution. And how did the world's slave-owning powers react? With absolute terror. They were terrified that Haitianism, this idea that enslaved people could successfully rebel, would spread like wildfire. The United States, led by slave owner Thomas Jefferson, slapped a crippling trade embargo on Haiti. The world basically put Haiti into a global quarantine, hoping it would fail. But the most cynical blow came about 20 years later. In 1825, France, the old colonial master, sailed back. Not with an army to reconquer the island, but with a fleet of warships and an ultimatum. This was basically international extortion. The price for France to officially recognize Haiti's independence was 150 million francs. And get this, it wasn't for the land, it wasn't for the infrastructure, it was compensation. France demanded that Haiti pay them for their lost property, and by property, they meant the human beings they had enslaved. And this became known as the independence debt. Under the threat of invasion, Haiti was forced to take out huge loans from French banks to pay for its own freedom. This debt was like an anchor tied to the nation's economy for over a century. It wasn't fully paid off until 1947. Just think about that, 122 years of paying for their own emancipation. And that debt, it was just the beginning of a long, long pattern of foreign intervention. In 1915, you have U.S. Marines literally walking into Haiti's central bank and taking its gold. You have military interventions in 1994, 2004. This constant outside influence has been a major source of the instability that Haiti still faces today. When you boil it all down, the Haitian Revolution was the ultimate stress test for all those big Enlightenment ideas. And this quote from our source really says it all. While other nations were talking a big game about liberty, Haiti was the only one that actually put it into practice for every single person inside its borders, no matter the color of their skin. So that leaves us with a really tough question for right now, for 2026. As this global conversation about reparations gets louder, does the world owe a massive debt to Haiti for the price it was forced to pay? Or is the real path forward for Haitians to reignite that revolutionary flame of 1804 and forge their own future? It's a huge question with no easy answers, but one that absolutely begins by understanding this incredible, powerful history.